Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. So today we're out on the front porch and we are preparing our potatoes to plant for the summer garden. And I thought I would bring you guys along because I don't think I've ever shared this portion of my potatoes with you. I have videos, I've done I think a couple videos on harvesting potatoes, and I've never actually shown you how I prepare or plant and grow my potatoes in the garden. So I thought that I would bring you guys along and share with you how I kind of do my thing. And hopefully that helps you guys out or gives you some ideas on how to grow your potatoes. Maybe I do some things that you've never heard. And yeah, so I'm out on the porch because I always make a mess doing stuff like this. So I brought all of my potatoes up from the basement and I am preparing them to be planted. So usually at least one day ahead of when I'm gonna plant my potatoes, I like to go ahead and prepare them by looking through if I'm going to cut them or not. Some of them I do cut, some of them I don't, and I'm going to share with you guys kind of my criteria for that, and what I do, which ones I cut and why, and stuff like that. So hopefully it all makes sense for you, and I will give you some examples. We'll look through these potatoes and I'll show you ones that I'm cutting and ones I don't and how I do that. But I've just got some of these trays. I think these are like 2 foot by 2 foot. They're pretty big. Love having these. They're really convenient for stuff like this because I can lay out the potatoes especially the ones that I am cutting. I want them kind of laid out so that they can get air on those wounds and kind of heal, get a crusty skin over them. But so I really like those, and I store, at least this last year, I stored all of my potatoes in these milk crates. I have a bunch of them now, and even the longer ones that are kind of like double the length, but maybe a little shorter depth. Those are really nice, but I like to just store my potatoes in crates that, for one, are non-absorbent, like a basket, in case anything gets yucky. But these are easy to keep clean and spray down if I need to at the end of the season. And yeah, they have nice airflow because there's holes on all sides. So I store my potatoes after I harvest and let them cure for a while out in the garage usually. I clean off all the dirt basically just with my hands, and I don't wash them typically. I just wipe them off with my hands and then put them in these crates, and then I take them down into our basement pantry. I do have some videos on that if you guys are interested in seeing that and what that kind of storage area looks like. And that is where the potatoes live all for the fall and winter and all that. So, and they stay there until I bring them up, either for cooking or for now when we have seed potatoes. So my seed potatoes are potatoes that I grew in the garden the previous year. My first year getting potatoes, of course, I had to buy my seed potatoes from the store. My first year started out with Yukon Golds, which I have here, and I've grown Yukon Golds every single year since. They grow amazing here for me. I have great results, and so I have the majority of my seed potatoes are Yukon Golds because they grow the best. I have the best harvest every year of them, and so naturally I have the most seed potatoes. These seed potatoes are third year potatoes, so I have grown these for 3 seasons. So this year of 2024, these third year potatoes are going to produce my 4 year potatoes. So that is pretty cool. I also have a crate there of russet potatoes. Those are second year potatoes, and so they will be growing my third year harvest. And then I have a small, tiny amount over here of red skin potatoes. So I grew the smallest amount. It was my first year, so these are just my first year potatoes. And those, I grew the smallest, but they did not store very well at all in my pantry. Whereas the Yukon Golds they just knock it out the park for whatever reason in the pantry as far as longer term storage. They last a lot the longest for sure. And they usually grow the largest, and I like their smoother skin. It's just a smoother, cleaner skin than say the russets. The russets are kind of dirty, rough skin, and so those are slightly less desirable for me personally, but I do like russet potatoes for a lot of stuff. I'm planning on just one full row in the garden of potatoes this year. Last year I grew two rows, which was great, but I don't think I'm going to have that much space this year for growing that many potatoes. If I can squeeze them in, I'm going to have to look at my little map that I have. And if I can squeeze them in, I'm going to squeeze as many in as I can, but I have so far allotted just one row for these guys. So I have to try to fit them in the best I can. So I grow my potatoes in garden rows, in raised rows right there in the garden. And I use a Back to Eden style of gardening where I have a deep mulch on top. So I'm going to show you guys how I do that, but we are cutting these up today. And like I said, we really need to wait at least one day after we cut these potatoes so that the skins can grow, so that they aren't so susceptible to getting disease or anything like that. We kind of want like a dry layer over that fresh cut wound. So I usually give it at least one day. If you can wait a little bit more, that would be even better. But I give it a minimum of one day. So today I'm going to cut them, and hopefully tomorrow I'm just going to go ahead and get them in the ground. But some people do use different products, like store-bought products, to dip them in after they've cut them to kind of protect them in a way. But I don't like to use really anything store-bought on my garden as much as possible. I do have an organic fertilizer that I've been buying at the store, but that is it. I do use an organic method of gardening, so even organic pesticides and herbicides and things like that, I don't use on my garden. I like to keep it just as natural, as simple, and as inexpensive as possible, so I don't want to add any sort of chemical, whether it be an organic one or not. Typically, I try to keep that out of the garden. So I just go with the method of letting it dry out for at least a day, and then that seems to work for me every year. So let's go ahead and take a look at these potatoes, and I'm going to show you. I've already started over here. I've got about almost half a tray of ones that I've cut, and this is just where I've been putting ones that are ready to go in the garden right now. And I'm just going to show you my criteria of which ones get cut, which ones don't, and what that looks like. So let's go ahead and come down and look at our potatoes. We'll find some examples here. All right, so here is some of our potatoes, and this is a mix of russets and the Yukon Golds. And we've got down here a whole crate of russet. These are Yukon Gold, and these are those Redskins. So let's take a look at these Yukon Golds, and I'll kind of show you ones that are going to get cut and ones that I am just going to plant right in the garden. So typically what I'm going for is at least two growing eyes on each piece. So as you can see, this one, for example, has a whole lot of them. This one has a ton, which is crazy. So I definitely am going to cut this one up because I also want to plant this with the eyes facing up toward the sky, okay? So if I plant this with this eye up, that one's going to be down, and it's going to have to grow around the potato and come up. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this up into maybe even 3 pieces because that has a lot of eyes on it. So again, I want at least 2 growing eyes per piece, and I would like to have them on the same side or close to the same side so that I don't have any facing directly down. So this is a perfect example of one that is going to be cut. All right, so here's another one. So this one really has only a couple of eyes. We've got this little one here and some teeny tiny ones, but we have two nice size eyes growing. And if I put this in the ground like this, both can be easily growing upward. So I'm not going to cut this one. I'm just going to leave this one as it is. And that's going to go right into the garden. And this one right here, we've got three nice eyes that are growing. And a couple itty bitty ones like right here, here. And yeah, so this one is nice. Now this one you could cut if you wanted to. You could definitely cut, I'd cut maybe like right here. And then you would have some small ones, a bunch of small ones here at the end, and then a couple bigger ones. So you could go this way even. But I'm just gonna, because I have so many, I don't need to cut this. I'm just gonna leave this whole and put that in the garden the way it is. And then we have this one. So this one has just two nice growing ones. There's a couple of smaller ones you can see. But I'm not gonna cut this one. I'm just gonna put that in the garden. All right, this one really only has one nice growing eye. So I'm just gonna plant this one, not cut it. So you can kind of see the gist of that. This one I'm not gonna cut. All right, so here we have another example. We have one over here, and then one here. So I could definitely plant this. I would plant it this way, and then they would all grow up and that would be fine. But I think I might cut this one. I think I'm gonna cut off one of the ends. I'm not sure, so I'm gonna just set this one here. It really isn't that big of a deal, so don't feel like you're gonna do it wrong. This one I'm not gonna cut. I'm just gonna plant it like this with that eye facing up. But don't feel afraid that you're gonna do it wrong or you're gonna, not cut ones that need cut or vice versa. It's not that big of a deal. Your potatoes want to grow. All right, here is a nice one. I'm gonna probably cut that one. All right, so your potatoes want to grow, and there's not a whole lot that you can do to make it not want to grow. So don't worry about getting it wrong. Just get your potatoes in the ground. All right, I'm definitely gonna cut this one in half. All right, so here is our crate of our second year russet potatoes. So I have ones that have nice small eyes like this, and I'm not gonna cut that one. And some of them are longer, like this. I try to grow seed potatoes that have all small eyes. I want to see them growing, but I don't want them to be grown way out. I mean, some of these, they get very long, and these are not ideal. I like to have a nice small eye. So if you have a bunch of potatoes to choose from, choose ones with smaller eyes. These ones have already done a lot of growing, and I want them really to be in the ground before they start expending all of that energy. So that's not ideal, but ones like this, if I have the space, I'll probably still plant. Like I've got over here, I'm still gonna plant this, even though it's pretty grown out. It's not ideal, but that's my seed potatoes this year, a lot of them. So it is what it is. But keep that in mind if you're going to get some seeds. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this one because you can see these are growing all up on this side, and then we got this one on the bottom. So if I put that in, it's going to have to grow around. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that one right here. Don't feel like you have to cut your potato right down the middle and it has to be symmetrical and everything. You can hear the geese flying over. So this one I'm going to plant like this so that these will all grow up. Oop, over here. Okay, and then this one can be planted like that. All right, and we have a bunch on this one too. I'm going to go ahead and cut this into a couple pieces. I'm just going to cut this one once. So I'll have this and this. Just do the best you can. Just, you know, it's all kind of guesswork. I mean, so that one's ready for the garden. I'm going to try to keep these varieties separated on my trays too, but all right, this one, it has a couple nice looking eyes. I'm just going to plant it like that. Ooh. So I want to grow them separate. That's what most people do, I think. So, trying to keep them kind of separated on my trays. Okay. That one's gonna go in the ground like that. But this one is quite overgrown. And I'm not gonna cut that. That one's nice, not gonna cut it. That'll just go on the ground like that. Looks good. So hopefully that gives you guys a little more confidence in planting your potatoes and what to look for. Just gonna plant that one. But it's all preference. Again, you guys, you don't have to cut your potatoes if you don't want to. And I think it's kind of one of those things on the internet where one person will say something and act like it is the one and the only and the best method. I mean, how many titles for videos do you see out there that say the best whatever, the best whatever? You know, anywhere on the internet, I have the best directions, I have the best guide, and it's my way or no way. And I don't necessarily like to preach that kind of thing when it comes to the garden because there is a variety of ways, and especially when there's so great of difference in growing areas and temperatures and time of the year that you're growing stuff. It's not just a one size fits all, but we can all share our methods and hopefully become better where we are. And so this is just how I do it, and hopefully that gives you kind of an idea and stuff that you can try in your garden to hopefully improve it or be better. Hopefully there's something that you can take away from how I do it, because that is the goal, to just share with people and hopefully be able to help somebody, right? So most of these russets are just going to go in the ground how they are, and a lot of them are kind of overgrown for my liking, but it is what it is. My Yukon Golds are really going to be spectacular, I'm sure. Oh, so these are all kind of smaller too. I did can a bunch of my potatoes too, so I still have some canned potatoes, thankfully. But when I want to do fresh potatoes, I have been buying them for the past month or so. All right, see, that one looks great. It's gonna grow great in the ground. All right, but you guys get the gist of it. That's how we kind of do that. And next, we will go over to the garden. Of course, this is going to be tomorrow because we're going to let these dry. All of our cut ones are going to be out on these trays, and we're going to let those dry a little bit. And that way they're a little bit more safe when we go ahead and put them in the ground with those fresh wounds, being able to have a skin. So we will see you guys back here. It'll be tomorrow for me. And all right, so it's actually been 2 days since we cut up our potatoes because yesterday it was super busy for me and it was really windy out anyway. So today's a much nicer day, still a little breezy. But our potatoes got an extra day to dry. So you can see that they've oxidized and they have kind of a hard skin on there. You can see as I squeeze, it kind of wrinkles a little bit. So that skin is going to just help protect the potatoes when we put them in the ground. So I'm planting one whole row. It's about 70-foot row. So however many potatoes that fits. I am going to start out with planting the nicer looking ones that have kind of the shorter, nice eyes. And then depending on how many I need, if I end up having to plant more, I'll plant the less desirable ones as well. And we'll just see how many we need. We've got a lot of the Yukon Golds to plant. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and just get started. If you guys know, in my garden is a Back to Eden style garden. So we've been doing that for many, many years. And we just got a ton of wood chips this year and we're getting our fence and everything up. So the garden has had a lot of work this year. And so we have a big fresh layer of wood chips. And so I've also got raised rows. So what I'm going to be doing is just using my metal rake. I've got a metal rake back here, your standard regular old garden rake. We're going to use that to just rake back the wood chips off of the rows. And then I'm going to use just a hoe like this, just like Grandma had. We're going to use that to just dig a little bit of a trench, and then we're going to put our potatoes in there. Now, people give you all different measurements on how far apart your potatoes should all be placed and everything, and I think that I kind of tend to push the limits on how close I can actually put all of my plants. I probably put a lot of my plants closer than a lot of people might, and I pretty much always put them closer than the packet says on seed packets. But anyway, so I'm going to be putting mine probably about 8 inches apart. And I'm not going to measure, I'm just going to eyeball it how far away that is. So that's what I'm going to be doing. So let's go ahead and quit to talking and get to raking. All right, so now that we have raked the wood chips back, I'm going to go ahead and make a little trench with my hoe. Now, I do have my water line kind of buried a little bit right here in the dirt, so I'm going to go ahead and pull that out and kind of set that off to the side too so that I don't damage that. But I have this drip tape to water the garden, and it can be left on top or buried, and I choose to bury mine, typically just under the wood chips, but it got a little bit buried over the winter. But that keeps kind of the birds from pecking at it when they see water coming out, and I think it just helps it to last a little bit longer because it's not directly in the sun. Usually when it's in the sun, it gets heated up and it starts to bend up and move around a lot, so I like to just keep it underneath the wood chips. All right, so I am also leaving a couple foot at each end because I'm going to be putting marigolds and calendula and some different flowers in the garden as well. So I definitely want to allow a couple foot at the end of each for those plants, and the rest I'm going to go ahead and trench. All right, so now that we got our trench done, we're gonna go ahead and put some fertilizer into that trench, and I'll show you guys what I use. All right, so this is what I use on the garden, the Espoma Organic Garden Tone. They have a lot of different products, and I also use their berry tone for the blueberry bushes and holly tone for stuff like the hydrangeas. And they also have a tomato tone, but I never use it. I just use the garden tone on everything. But great product. So if you do need to use fertilizer in your soil, I recommend that for sure. Hopefully I don't need as much fertilizer in the future, but because we've just been establishing the garden, we've been growing for 3 years here, so kind of a new garden space. It was lawn, and so transitioning that sandy soil into something more nutritious has been kind of an ongoing thing. So that's why I'm going to be go ahead and putting in the fertilizer. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, the method to my madness for applying fertilizer is sprinkle it on. So that's what I do. I don't measure, I don't mix it with anything. I just mix it in. All right, now that we got our fertilizer in here, we're gonna go ahead and start putting the potatoes in. All right, so I just went ahead and got a basket full of potatoes so that I don't have to carry them all the whole way. It definitely is looking like it's gonna rain, so I'm gonna try to do this quickly. So again, like I told you guys before, we want to have our eye facing up. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put my first one in here, and I'm just gonna kind of sink it in a little bit. And then I'm gonna go roughly 8 inches or so away, like so. Again, those eyes, if you have multiple eyes that are growing, that's great. Just try to do your best to put those in an upward kind of position. So I've got a couple eyes on this. I'm putting the bigger one kind of more centered, but all right. And these are the Yukon Gold. In case you're wondering, I'm gonna do probably close to 3/4 of this row with the Yukon Golds because I have so many, and then what I can with russet, and probably it'll only take maybe 10 foot or so for the red skins that I have. All right. So this one I have 2 coming off, one here and here. I'm gonna set this potato like so in the ground. Again, I'm just kind of pushing it slightly in so it stays where I put it. All right, you guys, so that is how I plant my potatoes. I do it exactly the same every single year, and it turns out great. I do have videos if you guys want to watch. I think I might have 2 videos of our potato harvest, so you can see kind of our results in the past and how we go ahead and harvest out of rows like this. I hope that you guys found this useful and enjoying, and I hope that you like and subscribe, and we will see you guys next time.